Hey everybody. Hi everyone. Very good evening to all of you. So today is 10th October and we're meeting today after a very long vacation after Dasara. Good to see you all. Welcome and happy to connect with you all this evening. So today's session is going to be very interesting because we're going to start on something very essential, which is considered to be as language development. So we have a specific chapter in our practicals, and that's considered to be as our language development, right? So we would be focusing more on the essentialities of why language development is very important and why it is called as the early literacy also. So we're going to specifically talk on the developmental parameters. We're also going to be talking on the early literacy. Okay. So these are the two things that we will be following it up. And this is also there in your theory. Okay. So we're going to be having simultaneously both the things, how well that this can be correlated. So entire session I'm going to be recording and I'll also be sharing it with you also. So you can make a note also. Now, first importantly, let's keep it very interactive. Now, how do you watch the development of a child, especially in terms of language? How do you watch the development in terms of language, especially like in case if you, I think most of you are young mothers. What are the different parameters that you observe when you have a child?
They use different words, ma'am.
They use different words, yes. They use different words, yes.
Try to know the meaning of them, and they will form
Try to
sentences also
ask
sometimes.
meaning, sometimes they tend to make sentences. Now, don't you think this is a later part of it? What I mean is the early literacy.
Communication. First is
Ma'am,
communication, ma'am. What they do.
communication. Yes, communication and bonding. Now, how do
Yeah.
you bond with a child? Let's say, for example, when your baby is born, how do you bond? How do you bond with your child?
Touching, physical touch, ma'am.
Physical touch, definitely yes. Is it also a code of communication?
Yes, ma'am.
It is also a code of communication, right? And it is very inspiring. Right from the day that the child is born, we are in a process of coding and decoding what the child understands, what we are trying to communicate, isn't it? Yes. So learning to talk is one of the most important human development. So this is something that we need to be talking about. So talking is very essential, and it is considered to be as the greatest milestone because it's very important for our development. So it's important for our human development. Now, in case if a child is not talking, is it very alarming for all of us? The child doesn't talk. We definitely feel worried, right? So we definitely have to be working more on making sure that the child is actually talking, which is contributing directly to my language development, whichever language it could be. But it is also going to be helping my child on the literacy part. So we are focusing more on the talking ability for a child. Now, anyone, have you tried learning a foreign language here? Anyone has tried learning a foreign language? Any of you? Yes, no? No?
No, ma'am, not
No.
me.
Okay. So why didn't you attempt to learn a foreign language? Isn't it very easy or is it very difficult? It's very difficult, isn't it? If I give you suddenly, I posted this in my school. So especially like whoever are there with me, I asked them to learn Kannada. And they all gave me a staring look at me because it's a new language for all of them. And then I enforced that you need to learn the letters and I called them for a small meeting. And now because even the new policy also talks about you need to know the state language to read and write. If at all, if you want to become an educator, right? So this we saw it in the offline class. In one of the session, we also had it on how do we learn it. How many of you have felt it very easy? Very few of them, but some really found it very difficult, right? So as for the child also, learning a language is very difficult. But at the same time, when the child is too young, it becomes very easy for all of them. Isn't that amazing? Right? It's very amazing, right? So this is something that we would be focusing on. So we would be focusing on two things. Now, one is like the child will have to do something which is related to language, but understanding the language is different. Talking in that particular language is different. So we need to get the differences of both the things. So language is important, understanding is different, talking is different. So once we get the differences of these two things, it becomes really helpful for all of us. So we have to make sure that these two things are different. Now, both require one specific thing. What is that? The child will have to use one of his sense. What is it?
Listening.
Hearing.
Yes, so they need to hear. Now, what do they hear? What do they hear? They hear what I'm trying to say. The sound of every word the child is able to connect with me, and the child will also be able to hear distinguished sounds that I'm actually making. The sounds are really essential. Now, for making sure that the child understands the language and is able to talk fluently, the child needs to hear properly so that he is able to distinguish the sounds and the meanings of those sounds. Now, what is this entire process called? Now, this understanding is a sensory perception. What do we call this as? We call this as a sensory perception. This is a sensory perception, and we call that entire process as receptive language. We call it as receptive language. Okay? The child will have to understand the language. He should be able to distinguish the sounds, whatever he is able to hear, because there is so much of sensory exercises which is actually happening. The child is able to perceive through the sense of hearing. His auditory skills are working, and that's the reason the child is able to focus more on the receptive language. Now, what do I mean by that? So that means that the child is able to understand as many words as possible. Now, those words are, we are going to be using them in what? We're going to be using that in the speech. Are you able to follow me? Are you with me? We're going to be able to take all of them in speech. Now, what is this speaking process? Is it related to my motor? It's a motor skill, right? I'm talking. So speaking is also a motor process. So that means getting all my muscles of the tongue, my mouth has to function together. Agree? So speech, we definitely need all of that, right? So it's a motor process. My tongue is constantly moving. My mouth is constantly moving. So that means my tongue and my mouth will have to simultaneously function together. If I just, okay, let's do this exercise. It's going to be very, very fun. I'm putting everybody on the gallery mode. If possible, please turn on your video for just this exercise. Okay? I want everybody to bite the tongue. Everybody bite the tongue. Don't bite it too hard. Now I want everybody to say A to Z. You're biting the tongue. Try. What's happening there? What's happening? So your tongue and your mouth is not simultaneously moving, right? So anytime that you want the speaking process to actually happen really very well, this motor development has to happen. So that means there is a good amount of motor process. That means getting the muscles of our tongue and the mouth to function together is very important. Now, if I don't have that, what I don't produce? What I don't produce? Did we get the sound when we bited our tongue? We did not get it.
Sound.
If that doesn't function very well, so we would not be able to produce the sound at all. So to just get the right sound, it is very important that we need to be able to work on this motor development. And what is that thing called? It is called the expressive language. Now you're able to understand. Just taking and understanding everything is the receptive language. But if you want to give it back, when you want to reproduce that particular sound, we call that as the expressive language. So you can note that down. So that is called the expressive language. So in language, you will have to have two differences. One is the receptive language, one is the expressive language. So you can always remember this example. So anytime that you want the sounds to come out, so it is related to our speaking, that's a motor process which requires two things. That is your tongue and your mouth will have to function together, right? So only then you will be able to produce the right amount of sound, and that entire process, what we often refer, is called as the expressive language. Now, what is your receptive? To understand what I'm actually talking, to understand the language, Okay, sometimes through the sensory perception. What is sensory perception? Through the sounds. I would be able to listen to the sounds that other person is actually making. That is considered to be as my receptive language. So there are two differences. So this is something that we need to be working on. So any language, I have two processes. In one, I would understand, that's my receptive language. One, I need to talk, I need to make sounds, I need to communicate with others. So that's my expressive language. So what is receptive language, Smriti? Smriti, what is receptive language? Smriti, in your own words, what is receptive language?
We can touch or feel or
No touch feel.
hear
It's
words
only
from
about
someone.
hearing. Only about
Yes,
hearing.
hearing. Yes, ma'am,
Yes.
hearing.
So anything which is related to understanding the language through the sensory perception, where you would be able to hear the sounds, is receptive language. Anytime that you're using your muscles, your tongue and your mouth to speak out, to talk in form of speech, where I'm making good amount of sounds, that is called my expressive language. So
That
your
is
language,
expressive
there are two
language.
processes. One process is where I understand, the other process is where I talk. Understanding is related to my receptive, talking is related to my expressing. So you talk, so you express. How are
Express.
you today? I'm very well. So you're expressing. So I could hear your sounds, right? So you used both what? You used your tongue and you used your muscles, actually, the mouth muscles to actually work. Everybody understood? Yes? No confusion, right? Everybody understood? Because your entire language development will depend upon these. Because from now on, we would be talking in these particular terms where what is a receptive language, what is an expressive language, what are the different things that we need to be understanding. These are the ones that we will be focusing a little bit more. Clear? Can we move forward? Can somebody tell me again? So, Supriya, what is a receptive language?
Ma'am, anything which we use words or or hear or speech is called receptive language. Is
Hmm.
it correct?
No, put it in a nice way. Put it in your own words.
No.
Now, somebody is talking or somebody is saying something. Now, say for example, what language you talk? What language you talk? No, because I don't want to go further until you understand these two conceptuals. Now, say for example, Supriya talks Hindi. Okay, so the language for her, the language what Supriya is talking is Hindi. So we are talking about a language. Okay, Supriya talks Hindi. Now, if I talk in Tamil, Supriya நீங்க நல்லா இருக்கிறீங்களா? Okay, so what did Supriya do? Did she understand or did she not understand? She did not understand what I spoke. So understanding itself was a failure. So that means she did not have a receptive language. Okay, so anything that another person is communicating to you, you have to understand those words, that language, that sentence. So that is reception, right? So you could not do that. Now, if I talk to you in Hindi and if I ask you, Supriya, आपने खाना खाया?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ. So Supriya responded to me. So that means she understood. Now, what did she understand? She understood the language. Now, what was the process? She had a process wherein she was able to get the sensory perception, right? So she got the sensory perception. Sensory perception of what? The auditory skill. She could hear what I was saying. She could hear, she could decode the sound, she could hear, decode the words, and she understood. So that process was considered to be as the receptive language. Now, when Supriya spoke back to me, that is when she expressed. She said, "Ha, ma'am, maine khana khaya." Right? So what did she do? She started speaking. Anything which is related to speak, anything which is related to talking, we call it as what?
Expressive language.
Expressive language, because she expressed it to me. Ha ma'am, maine khana khaya. If I ask more, she'll understand more. She'll have receptive language. She'll talk more. She'll have expressive language. So this is the difference. For both of it, we would be using what? For the first one, we use auditory skill, hearing. For the second one, we would be using our muscles, our tongue and our mouth muscles, right? So there is a motor. It's a speaking is a motor process which actually happens. Now this is the two differences, and this is very, very essential for early child development. Now, when you see children are not able to talk, when you see that the children are not able to talk sometimes, there could be some problems with this. Either the child is not able to understand what you're trying to say, or the child is not able to speak back. Have you ever overcome this particular issues in your classes? You have a 2-year-old, you have a 3-year-old, maybe they are not able to talk in your classes. How many of you have felt that? So you always say that other children are talking, this child is not talking. The teacher will have to first find out, is the child able to understand what am I trying to speak? Is the understanding capability good? Is the child is able to recept to particular language? If he is not receptive to language, then you need to start communicating. You become language bias and you start talking in the child's language. The child is still not able to communicate, then you go back and say whether the child is not able to decode the words and other things. So that is when you would further send them to a speech analyst, or you will send them to a speech therapist to find out where the process is actually halted. You know, the speaking process, why is it not happening? So this is what is there. Now, going back to the older ones, now say for example, when I have a newborn, can the newborn distinguish the mother's voice? If I'm taking a newborn's example, can the newborn recognize the mother's
Yes, ma'am.
voice?
Yes.
The
Yes,
child
ma'am.
will be able to,
Yes.
correct? Now,
Yes.
what if the child gets some interesting sounds? Like say, for example, if you have some bell, or if
They
you put some,
smile, they will
yes, if there's
hand and
any
leg, they will
interesting
shake.
sounds, they would be able to respond to that. Maybe they will also have some random movement. If not smiling, another thing, maybe they give you some random movement for it. They do. They give some random movements to it also, right? So this is also agreeable. Now, after that particular thing also, now say for example, in case if you keep doing it a little bit more, maybe the child will concentrate a little bit better, right? And then slowly, if you have that repeated sounds, maybe the child now recognize it very much. I have a repetitive sounds. How many of you have had those, the first toys where your child had a lullaby, which was in that, and we used to pull that string, right? The same tune, the child used to start to respond to those particular things. So the random sound, in case if you're doing it periodically, and the child has been hearing to that particular sound over and again, probably they would start responding more. They start liking it more, and they would love as soon as that music is actually heard, and the child will be able to respond. And that is when the child will also start making eye contact. They will start looking at to that particular object. They start making an eye contact towards that particular object. Or even you can see the mouth is actually, like moving. In case if you have a newborn, I think all of you would have experienced this particular thing. If not, you can actually have this information, like the child's mouth will start moving, because the child is wanting to talk to you one to one, because they're trying to copy your movements as and when you're trying to play that particular music. So this is something which the studies have told. I have not told about it. Most of the studies and most of the researchers have actually told that whenever you have this with the newborn, and you make these interesting sounds, which is random, the child will start responding to those particular sounds more often, in case if you're repeating it, this thing, and then an eye contact is actually formed for that particular object, and they start responding it very well. Now, this random sounds can actually help us towards something very important, and that is called as the language skill development. Now, sounds can become a language skill. Now, this is the question to ask. Can sounds be important? Now, you need to answer me. Can sounds help me to develop a sequence of language skills?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, what is the first sound? What is the first sound for the language? For a baby.
Name.
Now,
Baby's name.
Baba.
no,
No,
no, no,
no.
no, no. What
Baba.
sound? No, the baby will make sound. What is the first baby
Okay, हाँ,
sound to
baby.
communicate?
Crying.
Cry. Very good. Baby will
Baby.
start to cry. That's the first thing. And when do you think that the baby is going to cry?
Something needed.
Yes, when the baby is hungry, when the baby needs something, when the baby is sick, when the baby needs a nap, when the baby needs a nap, like a nappy change or some kind of an irritation, right? So these are the different possibilities that the baby is going to cry. Now, as a mother, as a father, would you be able to differentiate between the different cries?
Yes, of
You know
course.
what kind of a cry it is. As a mother, you will say, no, 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 just now I just fed her. She's not hungry. She's not crying for that. No, her nappy is all dry. She's not crying for that. Maybe she's sick. Maybe her tummy is not proper, right? So you would be able to differentiate between the different cries, right? So crying and making these random sounds is a form of what language? Is it receptive or is it expressive? Now you need to give me the answer.
Receptive.
Expressive, amazing. So now you all got it. So this is related to expressive language, and your baby is now trying to express it. Now, is it a part of communication process? Yes, the baby is trying to communicate it, right? Now, when you respond in a very caring way at that particular time, now what do you think more was going to happen? Now, the baby is going to discover more noises will come out from his or her mouth, right? Because you are trying to make things possible, and the child is also getting relief from that distress. You say like, Biba, or like, baby, this is not happening with you. Are you hungry or you're sick? You want to take a nap? And then you slowly cuddle, you slowly tap them. What happens? You're trying to communicate, and that is going to de-stress the child. Now, you didn't give any medicine. How did you calm the child? You calm the child, right? We all calm the child. Now, what is that? So, that is the effect of your communication. Now, that is when you also will differentiate between the different cries for hunger, for pain, for rage, for boredom, and many things. And at the same time, even the baby would understand, why is the child is actually crying. Sometimes, even for attention, the babies cry. Agree? Even for attention, they cry, right? How many of you have experienced? How many of your kids still cry for attention? How many of us cry for attention? How many of you all do that? When you're very bored, what do you do? What do you do to get attention? You dress up very well, or you get up, you do a lot of work, something, right? So we all need some kind of an attention sometimes. So children are also like that, and babies are also like that. They are also attention seekers, right? So when the baby is going to hear all these kinds of random gurgles and coos, what happens is like that all becomes a conversation for a child. It is all conversing, and it's going to be fun because you are talking, the child is imitating, is not able to imitate in the right way, but at least he's learning to communicate, right? So this is a process of talking. So is it an expressive language or a receptive language? Expressive or receptive?
Expressive, ma'am.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, when the mother is talking to an 8-month-old or a 6-month-old, and the baby is trying to see where the mom or dad is, now is it an expressive language or a receptive language?
Receptive.
Receptive language, right? Because the child is actually looking for a happy voice. So all those things are actually there. So now is where you start working on something which is related to babbling. Now soon the child is actually working. Now we move on to something called as babbling. The child is now able to babble. Can you tell me some words? What is the common things that the child is actually going to talk? Maybe dada,
Da,
mama.
da, 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 da.
Very good. So we have Ganavi's mama. She is very much towards, getting to the process. Yes, we'll hear it from her. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, Shweta, what are the jargons that your daughter is actually talking?
Mama,
Mama, okay.
pa,
Ta. She said Didi.
tata. She started talking tata.
Didi. Now, what is the common thing that you noticed was like there was repetition, no?
Yes, ma'am.
There was repetition. Now, in case if I divide all of them, it's like mama, dada, dada, dada. So it's like I'm breaking them and it has got that continuation of the same syllable, right? So this is something that we need to be working towards. So repeating of a syllable is very fun for a child. See, mama, and it goes like that. And then they might also mix with different sounds also. So that is also possible. They can say ma, da, ja, da, and all of that. It can actually go on. Now, this is considered to be as an infant trying to demonstrate the elements of communication. And this we call it as the melody of language. What is this called?
Melody.
The melody of language. It's so good, no, to learn all these words, all these jargons and babbling. It is not going to be, something which is not fun, but it is considered to be as the melody of language. Do you all remember what was your child's melody of language? I can say mine. When my Ashit was like, say, 7, 8 months, anytime that we used to travel, we had a lot of potholes in our lane. Every time the car used to go this way and that way, he used to say the, da. Because the car used to go this way and this way. So he used to say di, da. Every time it goes, he used to say di, da. So this was something that I cannot forget. So do you have something like that? Which your child that you cannot forget? No?
My
Ranjini,
son,
please smile. Yes.
my son at 3 months old, ma'am.
Okay.
He talked like ink, like
Ink,
this one.
ink. Okay, okay,
So 3 months
okay.
only.
3 months old. Okay, so that is something that you can still not forget, right, Chandra? Yeah, you can
Yes,
still
ma'am.
not forget. That's very nice. Anybody else can still remember what your child babbled?
My daughter, during when she was hearing one song, she used to hum that song. A few words she used to hum. Ah, she used to sing
Okay,
something.
okay, some humming. Okay, so that's amazing. So that you can still remember. It's so fresh.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yes.
When my daughter was small, that time that SL World was very famous. That advertisement comes, she'll sleep, deep sleeps.
Hmm.
She'll get up and see that, and then she'll lie down and sleep.
No,
Okay.
what was a jargon or a babbling? She used to
Ooh, she also hum with the music, ma'am. She love to hear.
Ooh, okay, so she used to hum with that particular sound. That's amazing. So that's from the SL world. Okay. Anybody else? The young
And
mothers, you guys are all young. You should remember more than me. We're all old moms now.
whenever hearing the new music means they will dancing,
They'll
moving
dance.
hands
Okay,
and
no, the first babble, which is still fresh with you. The first babbling. As mothers,
As
you
you
will note
speak,
down, no?
someone is singing here. La 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 la. He's
La
singing.
la la. Okay, so you had something la 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 la. Okay. So all these things, if you see, each mother was different, each child was different, and each one's parenting style was different. But did you see the pattern of every child? It had a repetition. It was either like Didi the, it had a pattern, inking had a pattern, had a pattern, la la la, had a pattern, right? So it was all the repetitive words. Now, if I could break it down, it was all into syllables. So we are talking about breaking those particular words, and that was considered to be as melody of language that we were talking about. And now we are going to be talking about syllabication. Now, if before the child could learn something, the child was also syllabicating the big sentence into the smaller parts of it. How beautiful this is, right? So, this is something which is very nice, which we have not spoken about also. And this is all a mix of several different languages. Now, did you see that there was a pitch and a rhythm? Each child had a different pitch, each child had a different rhythm, correct? So, my child's pitch was like di di da. So, the dha went on a high pitch and this was little low pitch. So it was like did that. So every time when a child is actually talking, you can relate to what is the pitch and what is the rhythm. So there is something which is related to your pitch and rhythm every time. And what is the other thing that you can always see is there's always laughter when the child is actually saying all this, isn't it? They always smile. So this is the most important thing. There's always a laughter. And that is the part of it, especially even though when the child is playing alone, and if they hear some other strings, the child will start to sense those syllables and they would sound like it is an actual speech. And that's how they actually go up and down, making all those noises. And we call this as a jargon speech. It is not the nonsense one. It is considered to be as the jargon speech, because this is the first important thing that we need to be looking forward towards the speech and development. So from babbling, the child was able to relate to it. If the mother was saying, "Do you want to drink milk?" the child might say, what are the common things that people usually talk for milk? They say, "Dudu." You want to drink milk? They'll say, "Ha ha, dudu, dudu, dudu." Right? So they have that. So even though the mother is not talking like "Dudu chahiye aapko," but the child is able to understand that particular language and the child is able to communicate back to you. And that is considered to be as your jargon speech. Now, between 4 and 8 months, we have something called as cooling conversations. Okay. So between 4 and 8 months. So what kind of conversations that the child will enjoy? The child will enjoy a cooing conversation. Now, what is cooing conversation? What is a cooing conversation? The child will not interrupt when you're talking. They will enjoy you talking. Right? When the mother is talking, the child will patiently listen to them and then only they would respond back. So this is a very beautiful period. If somebody is there within this particular period of motherhood, you will enjoy this. This is considered to be a cooing conversation, wherein taking turns with an adoring adult. The child will wait. After you pause only, that the child will actually speak back. Okay. So this is generally we use so that, the child is giving a lot of calmness over here. Why is that happening? Why do you think that the child is taking turn here? This is something which is important. Why do you think the child is taking turn? The
To
child will wait
understand,
for you to stop. Why do you think that the child will wait for you to stop?
to understand what we are telling completely
Yes,
correct.
yes. The child is learning the lip movements. And this is a very, very crucial month. So that's the reason we advise all the young mothers to talk a lot. Very important crucial period. In case if you have, you can also communicate this to all your parents, especially most of the conversation. If the child's parents or the caretakers are not talking to the child within this particular period, there would be a slow speech development, because this is considered to be as the most important period in any child's life, because it is considered to be as the cooing conversation period. Now, this is where they take turns to actually listen to our conversations. They learn something important. What do they learn? They learn sounds. Sounds of what? Sounds of our speech. Okay. Now, the moment they are able to interpret all those sounds in speech, the child will get more attention. The child is paying a lot of attention to each of the sound. And if they like something, what do? They show enthusiasm. They love it. How do they show enthusiasm? They smile at you, or they just push their hands and legs. They kick their hands and legs. They show enthusiasm. If they don't like something, probably they turn around. They walk around. Sorry, not walk. They might crawl. So either they can show enthusiasm, or they can reject. Or they can reject. So these are something which is related to the child's babbling and the child's jargoning also. So what did we learn over here? We learned about the melody of language. What is melody of language? Anytime that the child says mama, dada, dada, didi, and all of that, it is considered to be as a melody of language. Anytime that the child is talking in this particular melody of language, we always see a pitch and a rhythm in their voice. And every time it is associated with a laughter as well, and you will be able to sense the syllables, and it would be like the actual speech itself. And now every time that the child's voice is going up and down through the voice modulation, it is like the child is asking questions, or the child is making demands, right? So it is like the child is asking questions, but the mother is able to understand. and you converse back, and the child is still talking to you in the same thing, but the mother understands or the father understands. So that is considered to be as your jargon speech. You had a speech with your child, and that was considered to be as your jargon speech. And we consider this 4 to 8 months as the cooing conversation time, because the adult is only talking, the child is patiently waiting for you to listen to all your speech sounds. This is something which is very, very essential. So, what did we all learn? Can we quickly go back?
Ma'am, I want to know babbling one more time. You can tell me.
Babbling. Anytime that the child is saying, say for example, what? How do you talk to your child? Now, say for example, let me invite, with your permission. No, I think Shweta is not there. Okay. So, in case, how do you talk, Hamsa ma'am, to your newborn? Just imagine you have a newborn. How do you talk? Just pretend you have a newborn and just talk to the child.
What do you want? We will
You
do
will talk
smile.
like that.
Yes, we will make sounds also. Sometime we will talk also, ma'am. What do you want?
How do you talk to your newborn? I see a big smile on Ranjini. Ranjini, how do you talk to your newborn?
We will talk normally also, ma'am. Sometime, you're feeling hungry.
Pretend you have a baby in your hand. How do you talk?
Oh,
Your language. I'm not asking. You can
okay.
talk in your language.
பசிக்குதா என்ன வேணும் like that we will
That's
ask
all.
them when they cry means
Okay. So Hamsa ma'am, you've forgotten to raise a newborn. Okay. Sorry for that. Yeah. Ranjini, you can continue. Yeah, we'll ask Supriya also. Supriya, how do you deal with the child?
Same, ma'am. Whatever we speak in our mother tongue, no, what you want.
Speak. Please speak. Just think you have a newborn in your hand and just talk. Wonderful. Okay. So what did I wanted this. So Supriya said ole le 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 another thing. Is it a part of our language? It is not. Right? But still, Supriya assumes that her baby doesn't understand the language and she starts babbling. And what do the child do? The child will also babble back, right? Whatever are the words that the children are actually making, the parents do pick it up. It's considered to be as a baby talk. And that is nothing but babbling. You say, oh, le, 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 ah, le, 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 chi, 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 or whatever you actually speak during the conversation. So that's babbling. But that's also a conversation. And Supriya says, oh, le, 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 to it. And she pauses. Will the baby also converse back? The baby might also give some responses. The baby might also say, or something like that. Right? So that conversation of babbling is nothing but a jargon speech. Mama is also talking in a babbling language. The baby is also giving back in the same babble. So it's all jargons. So it's not a conversation which is not happening with proper words. It is a conversation which is happening between the jargons and babbles. So it is also a speech. I can't say that they are not talking. It is also a speech. And that speech is nothing but your jargon speech. Now, every time you have this jargon speech, there is ups and downs. So there's always a pitch. Can you see? When she said that, there's a pitch. And her rhythm is different than how Chandra talks. Her pitch is different than how Madhvi talks. Her pitch is different than how Soni pacifies with her daughter. Okay, so each one's jargons might be different. It all comes from their native language. So it's up to that. Okay, so that's babbling. Clear? Hamsa? Clear? Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, so that was related to it. So what were the different things that we actually learned? Can we quickly summarize? So we started with language development.
Receptive
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 language.
language.
Very good. Yes.
language.
The first important
Expressive
thing is that,
language.
yes, language is
expressive
very
language.
important. Talking is very important. We need to talk. So for talking,
The
why
sound
is
is
it so
very
important?
important. The
Yes.
sound, essential is sound.
Sounds are important.
Motor development is developed.
Language development is important. And we learned two important processes. What were they?
Receptive,
Receptive
and
and expressive.
expressive.
One is receptive language, one is the expressive language.
Hearing is receptive,
Okay.
expression is telling, communicating.
Yes, receptive is understanding. You're trying to
Understanding.
understand something. Expression is you're trying to talk.
Talk.
Okay. So after that, we started learning about
Born
random
babies
sounds.
making
Yes.
sounds.
So we started
Babbling.
working on sounds. The cry
Jargon
was one of the
speech.
sound. Listening also was one of the important thing that we wanted to actually work on. And then we started learning about babbling and jargons. Now, these are also considered to be as the language developmental skills. Now, later comes the other important things which is related to all of us. Now, all these things happen. Now, when the mother is actually talking or father is actually talking in sentences, which is comprised of many words, it is also essential that the child would understand the words. It's also essential that the child will start approaching. Now, when do you think it will all start? What age it might start? 1 year? Maybe
Yes, ma'am.
soon after
From
1
1
year, the child might start to understand, right? Now, say for example, in case if you say bye-bye to dada, the child will start understanding and the child might start waving. So understanding capability is much better and the child will start interpreting it only sooner or less than like 10 months, 11 months. When the child is closer to 1 year, they might start. Or when the child is hungry, maybe the child might show something. Yes, when the child wants something, maybe the child might point to something. So that means the child is able to understand and communicate. And as a parent, you will also understand specifically, not only through jargons and babbles, but also through gestures and commands. Now, your child will also understand commands. Now, what do I say that? Now, if your child crawls and if the child is about to fall from a sofa or something, if the mother says stop, the child might listen to you. The mama says, okay, sit, maybe the child will sit. The mama says, okay, stand, maybe the child will stand. Mama says, don't touch, maybe the child will not touch, right? Now, this is only when you're saying empathetically, not as a command, but in an empathetic way, the child might start working on all of that. And will also the child will start to respond. Okay, the child will also start to respond. Say, for example, when I call the child's name, the child will start responding, right? When I make some sounds, maybe the child will turn around and see from where the sound is actually coming. Or when the familiar people come, familiar voices are heard, the child will recognize, oh, it's my dad, it's my uncle, it's my aunt. The child will start to respond and reciprocate, right? So all those things are coming somewhere towards understanding of the words. It is all through understanding. So this is the next important thing. The child has started understanding. Now, what's the next thing? The child has understood everything. The receptive language has actually happened. What's the next thing? Expressive language has to come. So we understood a lot of words. We're able to respond to our commands. We're able to respond to certain objects. We're able to respond to a name. We're able to hear very good things. Now it is an ultimatum for all of us, for the child to say something, right? The child will have to talk. The child will have to speak out the words that he understood, right? So when do you start noticing all of that? Maybe end of the year. And this is where the single words will actually come up. The child might say dada, mama, hi, bye, no, or through gestures. And they would realize that they are able to listen to the sounds that the parent was actually making it up. Okay, so this is all towards saying the word. So this has also happened. Now, what is the next thing? Now I'm able to say similar words. Now I need to put 2-3 words together. Now, what is a specific word for this? I call this as a telegraphic speech. Note it down. It is called telegraphic speech. Now, what is this telegraphic speech? When the child puts together 2 or 3 words sounding like an old telegraph message. Okay, olden days, how we used to send the telegraph. Mother serious, start immediately. Father is in town, come back home soon. We used to get those one word telegraphic message, right? the child might also start to talk. Want juice? What is that? That's mine. Okay, in two words only they will start to talk. But many of us, we start complaining, my child is not talking in full sentences. But that's the actual process. The child will now start talking in 2 words or 3 words. Now the sentence formation is not proper. So what should we now talk? Whose is this? This is mine. Or do you want to come? I also come. My also come. How many of you all heard this in your classes? Ma'am, I also, my also, I also, I also. So they do not know, or they don't get the grammar right, especially. The next important thing that we as teachers, we need to focus is on grammar, right? So we focus on grammar. So that is the most interesting phenomenon in acquisition of our grammar. So we're going to be teaching and we're going to be helping the child learn the rules of the language. The rules of the language, not the grammar. The rules of language is what we're going to be teaching. So a 2-year-old child will also be able to figure out the rule of a grammar just from listening. For example, like say, for example, say if I can say, like, instead of saying shoe, my shoe is wet, we always say my shoes are wet. Get your shoes, right? So we are not talking about, adding a plural form. Two things is like many and we add s at the end. We don't. So only through conversing, we are able to talk. Can you bring some pencils from there? Can you keep these bottles over there? Right? I'm not talking about bottle, I'm saying bottles. Can you keep a bottle? Can you keep these bottles? So the child will be able to understand the rules of the grammar, be it singular, be it plural, anything. We're not teaching anything about it. Only through conversations we would be able to talk about it. Okay. And now even tenses. We can also talk about tenses. Did you eat? Oh, you ate. You already finished it. Or you like to dance. Or you threw the ball. You danced all night, right? You made mistakes. All these things are absolutely correct. It is all happening in your conversations. So these are the ones that we would be covering in our practical life skills. So this is one of our, today's topic was just the introductory of your language development. So we would follow with our practicals. And the same thing is there in your theory also, which is chapter number 6 or 7, which is called as early childhood development. And I'm going to start with this. Yeah, so this is what? So this is babbling, right? It is considered to be as melody of language. We can't say the child disturbed us. The child sang in our class. So it's considered to be as the melody of language. Okay. So if there's too much of melody, what do? We mute the participant. That's it. You can't say, especially when teachers are actually having the online classes, you can't be rude enough, right? So you can't be rude. You can't say like who's shouting, who's screaming. So you can always say like, who is that person who is actually creating that melody in our class? Can we cut it down? And then you can be really nice to all of them and you can mute the participant. Okay. So
That was the best part for the online classes, ma'am.
yes, that's the best thing. So you always have to keep up that smile, right? Yeah, so that's always there. So this is wonderful topic. Okay, so one of my favorite, that's considered to be as language development. There's so much that we can actually work on this language development for children. You can go on and on. The book is amazing. Your readable book is amazing. Okay, so this chapter is what we're going to go next. So we did chapter 1, and then we go immediately to our early time language development because that's very essential. Simultaneously, you can do your practical and theory. For all the students who are newcomers, so you will do the practical also with me. The old students will do theory and practicals with me. So that's the reason that I went. Now you understood what is receptive language, you understood what is expressive language, you understood what is a telegraphic speech, you understood what grammar rules are, so nothing, this is how the theory would go. In your practical, you will see, to establish the telegraphic speech, what are the different things that you will be able to work on. You'll work on your beginning sounds, you work on your ending sounds, you work on your middle sounds, and to work on the grammar rules, you will work on function of words. So there are different materials to support the grammar rules for children. So we will see a lot of practical materials also ongoing. So this is today's part of it. So I hope you all liked it, and I think most of you are young mothers, so you'll be able to relate to the conceptions very, very well. And please do take it a little bit more closer to your heart and you can actually explain it. Okay, so we did in the last class before the vacation chapter 1. So I could not share the question paper to all of you. So I'll share that today. Please go through the question paper. So we're meeting on Wednesday. We'll do the paper first and then we will continue with this lesson. So we'll do the paper for 15-20 minutes and then we can actually go by that. Okay, so chapter 1, everybody be prepared. And we're going to do a quick random test, mock test in the examination way. And you can finish that. Clear?
Ma'am, one request, ma'am.
Yes.
Whatever you show now, that in practical, whatever the telegraphic examples you will show on Saturdays, can you show in online class also? So
We can do
see?
that. We can do that. I'll show that thing and then we can
Yeah.
have a quick recap. Probably we can join in a little early, like,
Yeah.
or we can extend a little late.
Sure,
Because
ma'am.
I would need that 15 minutes more, right? So we can either extend, I think starting early, I think it will be difficult for most of you because 4 itself is little difficult. I could see that most of you are just coming back from school, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
we can
yes.
end 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Okay. When we've
Yes.
seen the
Thank you
practical,
so much,
I'll
ma'am.
also show you that particular thing for the online students.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it for today. So please go through your chapter 1 and be ready for the test.
Ma'am,
There.
chapter 1, that life history of
Yes,
Maria
life history
Montessori.
of Maria Montessori. I'll share you the
Okay.
mock test paper for today. So be prepared with the mock test paper. We'll do the
Okay.
same paper and I'll give you another paper. So let's see like how much the previous paper helped us and how much the other paper would help. If you solve 2-3 papers, you will be 100% thorough. Okay, and that's a scoring chapter. If people have got 100 on 100 in that. Okay. Yes. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Yes. Ranjini, you had saying something?
Ma'am, Madhavi, ma'am.
Madhvi, yes, Madhvi.
In theory book, we had to study our practical books, ma'am.
Theory, chapter 1. Life history of Dr. Maria Montessori, theory.
Okay.
Okay. I've also shared you that recording also. Please go through that recording too. I'll send you the question paper.
Okay.
After reading, just try to get the hang of the question paper too. And then day after, I'll give you another paper, very similar to it. If there's any differences, you will be able to understand and we'll solve question papers. So you'll be thorough with chapter 1. Okay.
Ma'am, how many subjects will be there at the ending of?
8 subjects.
Can you list out, ma'am? Not now. After this.
Sure. I'll just give you right away. So we have the following. Can you all see this? Okay, can you all see this? So you will have life history of Dr. Maria Montessori. So it's a 100-mark paper. And your attendance, your assignments, everything would matter. So your assignments and other things would be the ones that we are taking up as a test. Your attendance will also matter. How many of you have attended? How many of you have not attended? We have a attendance call. So it's a total mark of 100. So likewise, today we started with language in childhood. Okay. So we started with early childhood development and language in childhood. So this is your chapter 4 and chapter 5, an introduction part of it. In early childhood, we do a little bit more on the milestones and other things. In language development, we continue with same what we did today. What are the different forms? What is the phonetic language of doing it for children and all of that? It's basically for the language development. What are the different things that you actually work on? So that's your chapter 5 that we started today. So why I started this is because simultaneously I'll go with practicals. If you see the second section, practical, the number 4 is also language. Okay, whatever we have it in theory of chapter 4 and chapter 5, somewhere down the line when we are talking in practical, it will also correlate. Now when I'm talking of, yes.
Early childhood language is there in our book, 7th chapter, ma'am.
Okay, that's okay. So they have changed the new print, no? So these are the subjects. But for you, it will have a chapter number 7 as your early childhood language. But the blueprint will still be the same. And albums, we are not doing all 5 albums. We are only doing art album. We're not doing the other albums. And then we have Viva. Viva will be, instead of 20, the Viva is actually for 100 marks. So that's the change. We'll inform you about the change for the Viva. Viva is all oral questions and other things which the instructors would ask you. So this is what you have it in your paper. So I'll send you this also. So you can all keep a note of that. And whatever I have it also, I'll send you that. Let me share you that. So did you receive? Still loading, huh? Did you get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that would be your subjects. Maybe it's up and down. The subject numbers have changed, but those would be the papers that you will be writing. The new print might have changed. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So that's them. So what was your learning in today? What did you learn? Anything different you learned? Everything was the same, what we know, but we learned the names.
Yes, ma'am.
Language,
Yes.
expressive language, telegraphic speech, jargon speech, cooing conversations. How beautiful
Babbling,
it is, babbling, jargons. Now you need
melody.
to remember those names. What is a telegraphic speech? When the child combines 2-3 words, they'll have a telegraphic speech. So when you're talking to a parent, also when you're doing report analysis for every child, you can also say that your child has now been improvising on the telegraphic speech. How different it sounds. Now somebody might ask you, what's a telegraphic speech? Your child is now combining 2-3 words, and your child is able to understand. The child is being much more expressive. So he has started developing an expressive language. Your child is still working on the receptive language. He is still on the understanding perspective. Now, as soon as his receptive language develops, we will start working on his expressive languages. Now, all these things are very, very essential for the language development of a child. So this is how you would be able to work on the conversations. Okay. So you need to also build your speech when you're trying to talk to somebody, when you're trying to make your references, when you're trying to make your notes, when you want to answer something which is related to early childhood development. This is how you need to talk. So when as soon as the newborn is there, so probably the newborn is not able to understand everything, but still he would start to communicate through random noises and random sounds, and then the child will be able to understand the language through receptive, through the sensory exercises of the child, and then he would be able to express his language. And then crying becomes his first way to communicate for different kinds of pain or any other things, and then we will start working on this going conversations, and slowly, like the child starts to understand, and then his telegraphic speech would occur, and that's how slowly you would also start implementing proper speech. Now the mother or the father will not talk in the baby conversation, so no more blabbering, no more jargons. You will start conversing in a proper language. So your proper language will have grammar rules, right? So did you eat? Yes, I ate. Did you play? Do you want to sleep? Do you want to drink? The mother or father will also start talking to them in proper sentences. So unknowingly, you're still working on the grammar rules. And you're also working on the tenses. You're working on the verbs, right? The child is being introduced to grammar. So this is one part of it. So we have stopped till here. And in the coming classes, we would start with answering the first paper, and then we'll go a little bit more detail into our language development. Simultaneously, we'll do 1 or 2 practical exercise. All right? Yes. So thank you, everyone. So probably this Saturday, I might arrange Manjula ma'am, or on this Friday, we'll do our first art exercise together. Okay, so we will do our first art exercise together. So I want everybody to have a oil pastel ready. So you can buy out oil pastels. It is like similarly like crayons itself. And we'll do one art. And that art we will stick in our art album. Okay, so we'll start
So,
doing
ma'am,
that.
it will be online or offline, ma'am?
I'll try to get her online, because offline I don't know in case if she's able to give us the time. So if she's able to come online, that's much better. Okay. And
Thank you.
students, whoever come for offline, you can display it on that day. You can show it to me on the offline classes. All right. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, guys. Thank you for joining in this evening. So we'll see you soon. So sooner we have a phonetic class. Okay, I'll share you the dates, which is going to happen somewhere in the last week of October. So please don't miss out the phonic class. It's a 5-day continuous session. It will happen after your class. And if you're interested, please do come in. Hamsa ma'am, you've already attended. I would request you to come over again. So you will be able to refresh all the 44 sounds of Jolly Phonics.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So see you all. So we have many participants for that particular program. So I'll invite you to, and I'll share you the dates also. So please do.
Ma'am, I will also join, ma'am.
Yes, yes,
Can I
everyone
have?
can join. Yes, you can all join. So you're all most welcome.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
if you've already attended my previous program, you can still come back and revisit. Okay. So this is only for the new students, but you can all join in because you all joined a little late. Some of you have missed it already. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Good day to all of you. Goodbye. Take care.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.